Buckle down to, of course, to discuss with our panel what has been raised from the podium as well. And I can see reactions on Twitter. Many of you as well contributing this morning. Remember, we have giveaways. Dr. Wale Akinyemi's current book. This is Beyond Intelligence. Let me just sample a few tweets here. Then we'll buckle down to a discussion with our panelists. We have Moses Mushiri saying, what if we could commit to this idea of excellence? How blessed and prosperous our nation will be. The Bible quotes in Daniel 6:3, then Daniel was preferred above presidents and princesses because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Do you have an excellent spirit? That is also what Daniel is preferring there. Also, we have David the King saying excellence is being the best based on your exposure. He continues to say, without research, the future will be trapped into present, which over time will be mediocrity, just quoting Dr. Wale Akinyemi. We have Kenneth Kurgat saying, excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but we rather have those because we have acted rightly. We are what we are. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. And also we have Sawa saying, I agree with Dr. Kisaka. Kibaki was the best leader. He created a country with a vision where farmers felt like farmers, where they enjoyed their hard work. We have Kennedy Omogi saying consistency is an element of character. Also we have Jacob Abere Mtalala saying and excellence brings happiness, love, progress, vision, and fame in one's environment. And then also we have Zachary Muni saying, this is my take home from Doctor's speech. Excellence can be achieved if anyone is consistent. Brilliant. I'll read many of them as we continue with the program. But remember, yes, there are giveaways for you. There's a book for you as well this morning if you continue contributing also on social media. Let's just go back to where we began with Dr. Tim, and of course also gave the tenets and the elements of a good leader who is pursuing excellence. And you said that inspiring will follow the accomplished. That is not what I want to. You actually say that a leader can be a leader be committed to excellence. Let's just begin there. Can a leader be committed to excellence? Why then do we have this performance contracts, yet people become so, I think, far away from what is expected from the performance contract as well? Can a leader be committed to excellence?
Yes, and many people do it, but for fear of being sacked or the fear of losing their 13th check, because I think that's the motivation that's usually put in there. That's a low motivation, and I think that's why we get it wrong. And like Mike Eldon said, then people are ticking the boxes, but there's no spirit in it. There is no heart behind it. There's no power to do it. So people will tick the boxes and so on. So although we have had, I think it's good to be fair, I think we have had an appreciable increase in or growth in terms of productivity from, let's say, public service. I remember one time looking for we were drilling a borehole with an NGO, and in Turkana, and we needed a license from the permanent secretary. And my appointment was at 6 a.m. I remember asking my secretary several times, 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. and I was not the first one. He had started work at 5:30.
Because why is that? Because from 7 o'clock, he's summoned someone distracted.
That's exactly what he said.
Performance.
The rest of the day.
More and more of these senior people are coming in at 5 in order to do useful things with people like you.
That's exactly what he said. He was, because I asked him at the end, why are you doing this? He said, my only window is between 5:30 and 8.
Right.
After 8 o'clock, I'm not in control of my schedule. I am summoned at any time. So he had to kind of achieve his. And so, yes, I think if it's done with the right spirit and the right motivation, I think on the part of the individual. So that's why I started with issues of character. And I think a number of us have reference to character, attitude, which is inherent in the person. But without that, then it becomes just one more thing to do. And you do it mechanically rather than really, with a bigger purpose. I also talked about the need for purpose of excellence. It has to fit into a bigger scheme of things. You want to make a contribution, some of us have talked about. You want to make the situation better. You want to be a problem solver and things like that. And I think without those, then it just becomes another mundane thing to do.
So means and motivation is also what I teased out from your presentation this morning.
Right.
But what do you do if you don't have the enabling environment? I might be all gung-ho that I want to actually exhibit excellence in what I do, but the people around me also, they're of mediocre caliber, I should say, right? And they do not really espouse my values about excellence, or they do not really espouse these virtues that we're talking about excellence. So if I go very high expectations, yet the enabling environment is not also aiding me to be that particular perfect person or excellent person that I'm aspiring to be, how then can I achieve this? Maybe I go to, you're appointed, let's say we have Dr. Oliver Kisaka now as a principal secretary of ministry in the country, but you find there are actually a horde of people who control the system there. We know he's a very churchy guy. And we see this churchy guy also, they change also when they're appointed as the cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries. How is it the environment that changes them? I don't know.
Now, certainly it is much better if the culture, and I think some of us reference to culture, if the culture of the organization, also relates or supports the leader who wants to be excellent. However, that is not usually going to be the case. And that's why I think in my opening remarks I talked about the cost of excellence.
The cost of excellence.
Because you're going to be running against the grain. The average person just wants to get by, is mediocre, like you said, and so on. So I think several things. First, try to change the culture. That's part of leadership. And many people agree that that's part of the leader's role, is to bring about the right organizational culture if you happen to be leading an organization. So that now the organization can support, excellence as a value. But I think also first and foremost, model it. Even before you can, require it of others, model it yourself. You can't be showing up in the office if and when you want and so on, and you want everyone else to keep time. Model it in your meetings, model it in, whatever you do. So first of all, be a role model. I think secondly then, of course, is to then talk to if you have the opportunity to influence the culture, then do it. However, if you don't have that opportunity to do it, then go back to the stakeholders. Is it the members of the organization? Is it the stakeholders? Is it the owners of the business? And agree whether this is workable or not. I'm currently negotiating a new position that I should be moving into soon. And I realized it was important to get some things down, and even in writing, so that it is very clear to all of us what's required of me, and do I have the means to do it. I think, maybe with experience and so on, you get to know what you can do, what you cannot do, and what is possible, what is not feasible, and so on. So I think you can negotiate that space. But it is always important to remember, it's always going to be against a grain of culture.
Thank you. All right, and of course I have to let you go because we had agreed over 7:30. You should be heading for a meeting as you had actually requested to be.
With another PS.
Yes, with another PS.
Because they can only be found now.
Thank you, team. We really do appreciate it. And of course, I want you also to be excellent also in timekeeping.
I'm enjoying the time. Thank you to the other panelists. I look forward to interacting some more.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. In the meantime, we can also just hear from Dr. Oliver Kisaka, because from your assessment, you think Kibaki actually led this country to, to a pinnacle of excellence in some way, and we saw, the attendant fruits of his leadership. There was a flash of money. People were actually optimistic during his regime. Tell us more about this.
Yes, he painted a vision of what's possible. Every person in the sphere of operation had an opportunity. He recognized that they were being crippled by debt. He cancelled the debt. He recognized that there was no value for their products. He created markets. He restored institutions that could purchase farmers' products and eliminated middlemen whose purpose is to get what the farmer has worked for so hard and then pass it on to a consumer at an exorbitant price. I think, Dibal, in my sharing and referencing one or two people, what I really seek to communicate is that if a leader comes into the office focused on personal gain, that will not be an excellent leadership. If a leader comes into office focused on serving the people and making the best, creating the best environment that there can be, that leader will have both. I come from a community called the Quakers. the founder leader of the Quakers said, if any man is looking for fame, let him not seek fame, but truth, and he will have both. So he said, go for truth, go for service, go for what actually brings benefit to the people. If you build people, you will have both the people and the legacy. If you struggle to build legacy, and if legacy is defined in terms of huge projects,
yes,
you probably will have the projects and not have the people. And even in today's paper, you can see that there are one or two people who, after they have moved on, their property is no longer an issue. And I am challenged as a parent today to invest more in developing my family, the children, developing them. Because if I build houses and don't develop them, when I'm gone, these houses are going to be the source of great problems to them. And so the idea here is, can we have everybody cease struggling for personal gain, cease struggling to take out the billions out of the fund, billions which are meant to build the hospitals that will benefit the people, the schools that will benefit the people, the roads that will benefit the people. Why should I buy a big car in order to navigate the potholes which I should have fixed? Nothing against the big cars, but the potholes I should have fixed. If I fix those potholes, I probably would have needed a smaller car. So I'm just saying, is it personal gain or is it service to the people? If you focus on service to the people, you will find that the people get encouraged, they get built. So Kibaki gave every minister responsibility. And if you did wrong, you took responsibility. You could not say, I had orders from above. Because they were allowed to think. That's when people like Professor Nyang' Nyong'o came up with this economic recovery strategy. That's when others, they did great things during that time that inspired Kenyans and provided opportunity. So I'm just calling us to think again. What is it we can do to empower the people so that even the last person down there, they don't have to be a PhD to excel. They just recognize in their space, what can I do in my space? And if I do what I have done in my space, will it earn me an income? Will it take me another mile? And immediately they are doing that. You find great activity everywhere.
Which orients my thought to what also Wale was talking about. Infrastructure does not guarantee civilization. This is what you were alluding to, and we are mistaking infrastructure development for excellence, because we want to peg this to maybe the legacy that I'll be remembered, monumental, structures around the country, that will be identified with our labor. But that, you say, is not civilization, right? But what will be, if aside from the infrastructure, that will be monumental for you to be remembered for, aside from, the buildings, the roads, what other ways and avenues can we pursue so that we can say, we can remember this leader because he did this. This was a monumental, sort of a figure that he left behind.
Well, my definition of legacy is how you want to be remembered when you are no more there to defend yourself. Now, when you look at people like Martin Luther King Jr., what infrastructure did he build? When you look at Gandhi, what infrastructure? We're looking at people who affected the way people think. And I think that's the greatest legacy, that you can live a life that alters the way people think. And there's after meeting you or interacting with you, there is a before and after. If people are thinking, mediocre, and you are the leader, and after interacting with you, they are still thinking mediocre, then we have a problem there. And don't think that as a leader, you cannot take people where you have not been. You can take people to a place you have not been as long as you can see it and you can communicate it. JFK had never been on the moon, but he inspired a generation to want to go to the moon. And so that, I believe, is centered around what the leader, that so-called leader, leadership is responsibility. And part of the responsibility of leadership is to develop myself so I am better positioned to serve those I'm called to lead. So if I say I'm a leader and I'm not developing myself, who am I going to lead? You know? And when you look at the failure of even organizations, I was thinking about it. You had Thomas Cook, you know, and it really hurt me. When I was growing up, if you were traveling, it was the Thomas Cook traveler's checks. Everything was Thomas Cook. Then I discovered, and you know, 178 years, and they had an opportunity to be TripAdvisor, Airbnb, everything related with travel today. There was a 178-year head start. So what happened? How did it come down? Then I read that you had 560 stores in the UK, shops in the UK alone. Compare that with also companies like Yahoo, and I did a study on a lot of these companies, and I found out that, you know, it's not just enough to be a leader. You must see the future, train for the future, and hire for the future. So I want to submit that a company like Thomas Cook maybe when they were when they should have been hiring coders and programmers to create an insanely awesome online experience and other products, maybe they were hiring shop attendants. You know, so it is the leader's biggest responsibility to develop themselves to be able to lead the people and serve the people effectively.
Right, which segues to also what Mike was telling us about, you know, being excellent in bureaucracy. That you have all this dead hand of bureaucracy, red tape, that also is really curtailing your progress. You know that our line of thoughts or our line of operations is having the sales attendants, as opposed to people who will develop apps, and maybe that will even, you know, bring us to even more wider, you know, space of customer to try and get more customers as well. Being excellent in bureaucracy, and you are actually putting that squarely to maybe the current government that we have. There's a dead hand of bureaucracy. They say that we've increased the ease of doing business in this country. This is not really reflective of what is happening on the ground as it is right now. People are saying, no, we're closing shops because we cannot, you know, I mean, the taxes that is also being put on us is heavy. The tax burdens are heavy. There is also so much bureaucracy when you're trying to get documents from government. We are losing when it comes to foreign direct investments to Ethiopia as it is right now. Where are we actually losing the plot, Mike?
I was present at the launch of the Ease of Doing Business Index, and what was made clear there is that, number one, that's only one index of three. There's also the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index and the Global Competitiveness Index. And you have to look at all three together to explain the totality of where we are in Kenya. If you look at the Ease of Doing Business Index, where the reason we moved from 61 last year to 56 this year is because in certain measurable areas there was improvement. What we saw, though, that however necessary these improvements are, they were not sufficient. And the gap between the necessary and the sufficient was so big that it led us to worry about the meaningfulness, the inspiration behind the Ease of Doing Business itself. So this one of excellence in compliance is not just a Kenya government thing. It's not a Kenya thing. It's a global thing. And much of this started after the Enron crisis, after the 2008 financial problems globally, and it led to more and more compliance issues coming in globally and including here to take care of risk mitigation. The question remains how you take care of that responsibly, while at the same time not having it inhibit innovation. So, for instance, at Davis and Chatliff, I chair the Board Audit, Risk and Compliance Committee. It's not the Compliance Committee. It includes risk. And risk management doesn't mean risk obliteration. It means assessing what appetite you have for risk, what are the risk factors, what is the likelihood of each one, what is the likely impact of each one, and how to prevent risk whilst not dampening boldness. And we see that very much as this balance within our BARC committee, which we then reflect at the board level. And boards generally are over-focused these days on compliance because that's good governance, and they forget that there is still the opportunity to coexist as between that and stimulating opportunity.
Thank you. Right. So I wanted just also to ask, in light of what, maybe we can extrapolate this to what is happening in the currently in with the economy, because they've been toing and froing, especially on also the debt ceiling that we have right now, and which is a huge debate also in Parliament. And we've been talking about this. We've seen government officials saying, yeah, the country is not in the red as it is. We still have headroom even to get more data as it is. Leadership from that front, someone really coming to the front saying we are not broke. Then again, he speaks from both sides of the mouth and says now we are broke. Where are we? Briefly.
Myself? Yeah, Dibal, I think it's a very critical point that you raise. I come to this panel this morning pleading that those who are in positions of leadership may recognize that it's not a sign of weakness to change your mind when you need to change your mind, and to accept that perhaps I need to halt something for the next 6 months to allow something else to come up. I think where we are now, I was surprised because when the new finance CS came in, I thought he acknowledged that we were overstretched with borrowing. I don't know where this legislation to raise the ceiling to 9 trillion came from, because it was contradictory to what was understood. I would say myself that it's very important, and I think it was yesterday, you had a panel here yesterday discussing socio-economic situation. Yes. And one of the observations there was that we are in a situation where KRA is beginning to fail to meet its targets. I think there needs to be an understanding that for as long as people are getting laid off in jobs, it will continue to fail to meet those targets. There needs to be a way in which we spur. Now, there is an argument, which in my view is only half an argument, that if you remove interest caps, you will make credit accessible to the people. I say you will give banks the opportunity to exploit the people, because banks are telling you they are not creative enough to make money within 13.5%, when all of us know that in the US, in the UK, interest rates are less than 5-6%, and they make money. So instead of pursuing excellence in management and efficiency at the bank level, we are looking for a way in which we are going to make it impossible for any investor. Let me tell you, no investor who invests at more than 15% will have an easy time paying that loan. That is for sure. And if they are already in a difficult situation where the average Kenyan is unable to purchase because of liquidity problems, you think about that person investing in a place where a bank is allowed to even charge 24% interest rates, in the pretext of calling the average Kenyan a risky person. I think government should cease borrowing from the local market or reduce borrowing from the current level by 50%, The banks are going to have so much money in their banks, they don't know what to do with. They will go begging people like they were begging us in Kibaki's time. Are you looking for a loan? If you had a small income, they would come to you.
Thank you.
And the interest rates were low enough for them people to function. I'm just pleading, please, don't squeeze the Kenyan father. You are taxing M-Pesa, you are taxing this, and now you're going to create a new way of taxing even more. I'm just suggesting, please, cease borrowing for about half a year or a year. These same banks that are complaining they can't lend to the people, they will be begging people to take loans, and they will make money for the country.
Thank you. Right, I was to come to Yvonne, and of course I like your connection also to community. It's about the people at the end of the day. This is what also Oliver Kisaka is alluding. It's about the people. You say excellence is measurable, it is transformative, and just contextualize what you're telling us a bit to try and make us understand how is it measurable, how is it, how should it also be transformative?
Well, Debar, I just want to remind you about the charged people. There's power of intention, and we need to understand that whatever you do, you have an intention. And that intention will define you better, because once you are given responsibility and you had a different intention, we'll be able to tell whether you truly are charged, you are ethical, you're a good leader, or you just wanted to get there for gain and self-glorification. Today, Dibar, you agree with me that there are so many perceived leaders in the society, and they've used social media and the mainstream media to talk about how big they are, what they have been able to achieve. But when you go to the ground, as they say, kwa ground vitu ni tofauti. And this is because we do not define leadership as what people have achieved or acquired. It is a self-made achievement, and you don't do it to glorify yourself. You want to see change. You want to see communities transformed. You want to be able to count one by one and see what is that I have been able to achieve for my people, for the community, for my family, at home level. As I said, with children, we need to teach them that these values will take them somewhere. Because if our children are watching what is happening and they are not seeing any change, and we are still pushing them and demanding so much from our children, yet we are not responsible enough to show that direction, we are not going to say that we are excellent parents and excellent leaders in what we do. Yes.
Right, thank you. Right, you mentioned Yahoo, Dr. Wale Kinyemi, even as we're preparing our, of course, closing thoughts as well, that they had, a handy opportunity to innovate and keep themselves relevant by some of these companies that have become, one of the leading companies when it comes to, capitalization. Before it was the Exxon, the oil companies. Now we can see the first listed four will be tech companies when you talk about the tech unicorns in the world. But Yahoo failed to, seize the moment. They failed to improve and become excellent in what they do, and they lost ground as well. How can we try and juxtapose that to, some of the leading brands like Coca-Cola who've kept themselves, relevant over the years? Briefly.
When we say Yahoo, drop the ball, don't forget we're not talking of the word Yahoo.
The Yahoo
people.
Yes.
So it is the leadership that dropped the ball. Okay. I did a study of timeless brands, like Rolls-Royce, Coca-Cola, and one of the things that they all have in common is that they were able to accurately predict the future, number one, and number two, when they predicted wrongly, they did not have any sense of embarrassment. They retracted. Coca-Cola introduced a new formula once, and people hit the streets, that we don't accept this formula and all that. And you know what? They read it right. They read the market. Of course, what did they do? They retraced their steps, and now we came up with Coca-Cola Classic. You know, so it's
Unlike Boeing just now.
yes. So it's leader. Don't forget, it is leadership at the core of this thing. If they are not able to, and you see, there is the emotional attachment with the past, especially when the past has worked. All right? Now, as long as we're not able to come out of that emotional attachment from the past, irrelevance is guaranteed. You know, and then another thing, have the right networks in place. For instance, Rolex, another timeless brand. What have they done? They found the right association. So when Sir Edmund Hillary was climbing Mount Everest, he was putting on a Rolex. When people were swimming to the depths of the ocean, they had a Rolex. They found who were the achievers at and the dreamers at any point in time, and they associated with them.
Thank you, thank you. Right, let's just get closing remarks from our panelists. We'll begin with you, Mike Eldon. Just briefly, what would be, of course, your takeaway from this conversation that you can give to our viewers today?
This Boeing one I just brought in here, their obsession with beating Airbus, this short-term sub-optimization, this absence of responsible leadership is what led them to hold on to making that 737 fly when it shouldn't have been flying. The other 2 points I have, I like this one about adequacy is good enough, as some people feel, why go the extra mile when adequacy is good enough? And I see this a lot in how people write. I do a lot of editing, I write, and I do so much to struggle with people who say, well, they understood my message, what's the problem? And my final thought is about these obsolete beliefs. And often these days, I keep coming back to this wonderful book, Out of the Maze, that if you hold on to beliefs that are holding you back, you won't get out of the maze. And it is only if you get help or you have these conversations with yourself, you do self-coaching to let go of obsolete beliefs, that it's shop fronts for Thomas Cook or whatever it is, that you will go and find new cheese and fruit beyond cheese.
Fruit beyond cheese. Right. Oliver Kisaka, your closing remarks.
I think for me what gives me encouragement this morning, even as we talk about the companies that have found themselves overtaken, is that there is a lot of new thinking that's happening. Even in Kenya, I think we have demonstrated before that Kenyans are innovative, Kenyans are resilient, that Kenyans can actually work at something, pursue it and overcome. Kipchoge has inspired us just very, very recently. To me, that is inspiring. Just the fact that all of us that are holding any position of responsibility or celebrating any achievement must sit conscious that unless we are innovating and refreshing and changing our thinking, we will soon be past, because there are other people who are thinking.
Thank you.
For our government, we would say, please facilitate that these innovations find space.
Thank you. All right, let's listen also or hear from Yvonne Katambo. And also, you can tell us there's a conference coming up next week in Mombasa for the Business Ethics Network of Africa, that is Ben Africa.
Yes, Ben Africa is hosting an international conference next week from 7th to 8th. And we have in every stakeholder in the leadership and ethics and governance sector to just discuss and have a conversation around the Pan-African leadership agenda. And so I'm extending this welcome to all the stakeholders to join us next week in Mombasa to happen in Serena.
All right, and of course...
My closing remarks, sorry, Diba?
Yeah, just go closing remarks.
Yeah, I would like to urge the government to make good use of research. I think I was very disturbed when I saw that we have already got China to get our avocado, and yet farmers are expected to invest seriously on cold chain management. This should have been seen. To my viewers, it is not over until you drop dead. Just wake up and do something. Yeah.
Thank you. It's not over until you're dead. Wake up, do something, That's closing remarks by Yvonne. Let's hear also from Dr. Wale Akinyemi.
I think one of the people that really inspired me is the man Roberto Goizueta, who was the then CEO that turned Coca-Cola around. You asked about Coca-Cola. At a time when Goizueta was there, the leadership of Coca-Cola was focused on Pepsi. That Pepsi is our competition, and there was that battle. But you see, this is where I'm saying leadership must cause a difference in the way we think. Goizueta got there and said, we're thinking too small. He said, our competition is not Pepsi. He says, what is our share of the stomach? He said, our competition is water. Our competition is milk. Our competition is every fluid that goes in the stomach. And that was the turning point. Wow. So let's think bigger.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we have books we're giving. This is Beyond Intelligence, winding up, and I can just give to some of the viewers that I think have been actively involved in contributing on our social media. This is, I read some of them here. We have Sawe. Sawe has contributed also largely. Let me just read some of the tweets that we have. First of all, let's begin with Jarateng. He's saying, pursuing excellence is a form of essentialism, as defined by the book of the same name by Greg McCorrin. It basically means eliminating all that is unessential from your life, so you can apply deliberate focus and practice to what you decide is essential. We have also Vincent Kimosop. He's saying a great legacy is achieved when an individual lives his life in a manner that affects the way people think. Also, we have Governor the Dreamer. Leaders need to provide strategy and direction and to give employees to